Hello YouTube, my name is Nero, and what if I told you that at one point in time, Activision considered making a Call of Duty game that followed Julius Caesar, and it was going to be called Call of Duty Roman Wars. This is actually factual. This is some amazing news that just came out today by Games Radar. So before we even get into the video, I want to thank Games Radar for making the article and this video initially, because they were the guys that actually leaked all this information, because previously nobody really knew about Call of Duty Roman Wars. So without them, people probably still wouldn't know about it. So go ahead and click the links down there in the video description. It'll take you over to the article by Games Radar, as well as a video by Games Radar, if you guys would like to see this stuff from them. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, Call of Duty Roman Wars was going to be a thing, and we're going to be covering that here in this video, while actually showing you guys some of the prototype footage of this lost Call of Duty game. So the game itself, Roman Wars, was going to be made by Vids, which is actually a studio still owned by Activision. They're widely responsible for the Skylanders series, but back in like around 2008, apparently, when this was being put together, they were going to be the group that was going to put together Call of Duty Roman Wars. They actually put together a prototype, which would actually be like the first level of the game, basically, which would have a bunch of different stuff in there to try to convince Activision to make the game. The game itself was going to follow Julius Caesar's 10th Legion, and would basically just follow him around through all the things that he did in his lifetime. And the game, of course, because of that, was going to feature catapults and horses and rideable elephants and all this really cool and interesting stuff, and it was going to be made within the Unreal Engine. The game was going to be primarily third person with a heavy Gears of War feel, and have a super focus on melee, sword and shield combat, but it was also going to feature stuff like bows and spears and axes. And at one point, they were actually even working on the idea of being able to throw sand at your enemies to blind them temporarily, which actually sounds pretty hilarious. The game was going to feature perspectives from all kinds of ranks, like most Call of Duty games do, from grunts all the way up to playing as Julius Caesar himself, but ultimately, the game never made it past this prototype. Activision wasn't 100% convinced on the game, and they were very unsure about using the Call of Duty branding on the game, which at the time, Vids, which back in 2008, they put together a small team, which they called Fire Team, to put together Call of Duty Roman Wars. They were very set on trying to make this a Call of Duty game. They wanted to have the Call of Duty branding to it, and that's where kind of negotiations kind of fell through, and ultimately Activision never actually picked up this game, and rather they took a different pitch, which would eventually turn into Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. That's super interesting to me. So this is basically the lost Call of Duty, or at least one of the lost Call of Duty games. I think we've all heard about the game that Sledgehammer Game was initially working on, which was going to be a third-person Vietnam-style Call of Duty game, but of course they never ended up actually making that, and instead they started working on Advanced Warfare. So this is now two Call of Duty games that were initially going to be put together, but ultimately just kind of fell through at some point in the development. Now, this game never really made it too far past the prototype. The footage that we're watching is super old footage, right? It's obviously very low quality. It's from around 2008. It obviously wasn't recorded very well. This almost predated pure HD, right? Back in 2007, 2008, not a lot of people had HD televisions and stuff like that, so obviously the quality is going to be pretty bad. But you see these big, bulky guys in armor. Again, super heavy melee focus. There's going to be horses, catapults, riding elephants, and stuff like that. And that's all well and good, but I wonder, how would this game have actually worked within the Call of Duty context, right? These guys, Fire Team, which of course was part of Vids, they were so set on trying to make this a Call of Duty branded game. Was it going to feature the stuff that Call of Duty was known for at the time? Because again, this was being developed around 2008, which at that time, Call of Duty 4 was out, and World at War was probably around or about to come out at about that time. So I have to wonder, would they have actually gone ahead and made it a proper Call of Duty game to keeping up with the rest of the stuff that COD 4 and World at War was doing in terms of a prestige system, create class, all this kind of stuff that just came out and was new and fresh in the Call of Duty series? Would they have actually had that in there? How would multiplayer work in Call of Duty Roman Wars? Was there even going to be multiplayer, or was it just going to be like a spin-off side game that was just going to be like following Julius Caesar in like a single-player campaign? I don't know. That's definitely an interesting question. How exactly was that going to work? But again, this is a game that never really made it past the prototype. It was going to be a game that potentially could have actually came out, and the people that were actually putting together the game, they estimated that they were going to actually be finished with the game at about the time the Xbox One came out, which was pretty interesting because that's the time, of course, Rise came out. It was one of the biggest launch titles for the Xbox One, and then they saw Rise and how cool it looked, and they kind of had that as kind of like an FU moment to Activision, like, look, this is what you guys could have had. This could have been an amazing game. It would have been under the Call of Duty branding. It would have been cool and interesting, but ultimately, I wonder how fans would have received named Call of Duty Roman Wars. That's so much different than what we've had in the Call of Duty series before. It's kind of hard to wrap my mind around it. Roman warfare, like we're running around with spears and swords and shields and stuff like that. That definitely doesn't sound like Call of Duty to me. I have to wonder how many other lost Call of Duty games there are out there. We, of course, have Roman Wars that was canceled. We had the third-person Vietnam game that was canceled. I wonder if there's any other ones out there. I doubt Activision would ever tell us, because that'd basically be like saying to other publishers or studios and developers, hey, this is our idea, feel free to steal it. So they'd probably keep that all under wraps for the most part. But I have to wonder, is there another World War II game that was canceled? Was there ever a World War I game that was canceled? What about a proper Vietnam game? Maybe another weird one where we go super far back in time. Was there ever a Civil War game in development that was canceled? Was there ever an American Revolutionary War game that was in development that was canceled? That would be interesting, right? If you were to tell me, before all this stuff was actually confirmed and we got actual footage and stuff of it, if you were to tell me that Call of Duty at one point considered making an ancient Rome Call of Duty, I wouldn't believe you. It's so odd. So I wonder what other weird prototype games that they've had so far. I think it'd be awesome if we could learn about that, but unfortunately, we may not ever learn about them, but who knows, maybe in the future, some of that stuff will surface. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on Call of Duty Roman Wars down there in the comment section below. If you did enjoy the video, please drop me a rating. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.